let me ask you this, and we'll get into, Mayor of Kingstown also, because you play, another law enforcement person. I've had a lot of encounters with law enforcement back in the day, and I had, formulated kind of a bias against them until things turned around for me, and I understood right from wrong and wrong from right. Did you ever have any encounters with the police that when you got into this role, you had any preconceived notions that you had to get rid of, or, whether it be good or bad, whatever? Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. Everything is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, I give God all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving for that. And today I got a special guest that I'm going to have a sit down with. His name is Rob Kirkland. He is an actor in two of my favorite series out there by Taylor Sheridan. I've spoken about it before. I've done some reviews on it. One is Yellowstone, and two is The Mayor of Kingstown. Two great series, brilliant series. Rob does a great job. He plays law enforcement in both, but just a great job. But better than that, he's just an all-around great guy. Very down to earth, just a humble guy, and very interesting. You're going to hear a lot of what he has to say about the industry, about those shows, and I think you're going to enjoy it. And I certainly did. So, Rob Kirkland, here we go. Okay, Rob, I can't tell you how excited and enthusiastic I am to sit down with you. We call these a sit down, so you're going back to the old New York days. I hope you don't mind that.
I don't mind, yeah. I'm a tri-state kid anyway, so born in...
that's right. You were born in Jersey, huh?
Born in Jersey, yeah. Born in Jersey, 4 generations. My mom refused to leave until she officially left, But yeah. I still think of New Jersey as home. Yeah.
And now we're both transplants living out here in Southern Cal. It's not too bad. We got the best weather in the world,
yes,
honestly.
100%.
So we can't complain. But anyway, I got to say this. You are, look, you have a great career. I know you Criminal Minds and all those great shows that you were involved with, and always do a great job. But I have to tell you, you are in two of the most favorite shows that I've had. I mean, it's become like, no, I'm serious. Every Sunday night, we're by the television, the whole family. We just love both of those shows. And I've been talking about both of them on my channel, and people are jumping on it. It's been great. But I got to ask you this right off the bat. There's some rumors going around that something may happen with Yellowstone. It's not going to be continued. Can you squash that, I hope, right away?
I can. So what can I say? I have heard from because when I heard that news break, I was like, oh, interesting. And there was some stuff like, we knew about, Kevin was doing his movie, which definitely altered some stuff with season 5. And so that's public knowledge now with that break. But I can say this. I've heard from an extremely reliable source and what said to me is don't believe all that BS and just leave it at and they just left it at that. But that is an extremely reliable source, and so I take that as yeah.
That's great to hear. I'm sure the millions of fans that are out there are going to be very relieved when they see this, because I did hear that they said, no, it's not true, but hey, you never know. But glad to hear that.
Nothing has been regarding the press releases and everything, or that came out a couple of days. Nothing's right. None of that's died. So
excellent. And you're going back to film shortly, right?
Yeah, they confirmed. They reconfirmed. Yeah, get ready for the second half of season 5, which I can't wait, because it's always great to go back to Montana. I love that place. I love that cast and that crew. And there's a couple things that we've been talking about for, what is this, 2023 now? So 2021, I think Taylor told me about a couple of things. Then the pandemic, and then happened, and then 1883, which is fantastic, and rescheduling. So yeah, there's a part of this story that he's been, Yeah, so get ready. That's all I've been. Yeah, it's been a few years in the making, so fans will not be disappointed with the second half of season 5.
Well, Rob, I have to say this, obviously now I'm a huge fan of Taylor Sheridan's. I don't know how he's coming up with all of these shows. I mean, brilliant, one right after another after another. It's amazing. But let me ask you this before we get into Yellowstone, which I really want to get into. What do you think it is? I mean, this transition to television, I mean, it's just brilliant. I mean, it far surpasses, as far as I'm concerned, what's going on in the movie world. The writing has been so brilliant. The acting has been so brilliant. The storytelling. I mean, it almost makes I don't even want to go to a movie anymore. I want to see everything streamed or on television. I mean it. It's all of these great series that have come out. I think it all started with The Sopranos and then went to Breaking Bad and then all these great series, but they just keep coming. I mean, there seems to be no shortage. It's unbelievable.
Well, there's something about that particular format, and I know I sound biased, being a Jersey guy, but Sopranos is the gold standard in my opinion. It's my favorite television show.
Mhm.
Which is and then I know that Terrence Winter from The Sopranos is working with
Right.
Taylor Sheridan on Tulsa King, which is a phenomenal show. Yeah, there's something about that. I was talking to someone, I guess that's not really important who I was talking to, not that they're not important, but about doing. I was rapping with my buddy Chad Galster, who edits Yellowstone, and we had a little bit of a sit down, and I kind of wanted to pick his brain. I'm a storytelling, addict personally. And so he was telling me, when they're crafting the story together and editing, and you're in there as an actor, and you're done your work, you've done your homework, you've done your prep, and you're as present as possible, but you play. You find different ways to do it, and talking to Chad and how he and Taylor select things. And then I was saying, hey, what is really interesting about TV is that I can sit here. A film is great, in the sense that it's very nuanced. But the TV, to your point, like The Sopranos and dare I say, Kingstown and Yellowstone and other things, very nuanced. It's becoming more like film. But the one thing that is a little bit of an advantage, I think, which came up in that conversation with Chad, is like you have more time to learn the character, to sink into the character. And even I was like, yeah, man, when I see what you guys put together and you edit, like I never watch my dailies. And some actors do and it works for them. For me, I never see anything until it shows up on TV. So I have no idea what.
So you don't want to watch your dailies?
No, never want to watch my dailies. Never want to even see, like, once I put the uniform on or whatever and come out of hair and makeup. That's it. I never look at myself. And again, some actors it works for and it does great. So I don't not saying that it's the better path, but for me, I don't see anything until it pops up on TV like everybody else. And I'm also very curious, like I was saying to Chad, like what takes you guys take, right? And we'll play the scene sometimes, like that scene with Kevin and I in Yellowstone at the end of that season 4. We'll just do different things. That happens when you're working with great actors. I love the actors on both these shows. They're so committed. But I was like, yo, I will start taking cues sometimes from you guys because of doing this as in TV. The benefit that you have versus film is that I can see this character evolve. And then, you know what I mean? Because I'm providing it, as Chad said, yeah, well, you're providing the takes. I'm like, yeah, but I can kind of see where you and where Taylor is taking certain things. I'm like, oh, it's interesting. They chose that take. They chose that take. That's interesting. Even though I threw that take in the performance, I did it. It was something that wasn't, it was something me trying something over here, right? And it's like, oh, interesting. So they're leaning a little bit more into this color of the character, this shade of the character, you know what I mean? Or this shade of the story. And that's kind of fun. That's different with TV, so you can do that. And I think that's a testament to, not that I can speak for every actor, but in the quality of television that people are getting, is that the level of commitment, the nuances there, and then you're really able to marinate or to meditate with these characters, and you as an artist are seeing the character evolve, and I know it's an interesting a dialogue, so to speak, and I think that's part of it. That's part of it.
That's interesting, and as a viewer watching, just watching these characters develop and the storyline develop. I mean, really, with these great shows like Yellowstone and Mayor of Kingstown, you're just waiting for Sunday for them to happen again. You know, it's like in a family event. The whole family's talking about it. It's great. Now, I got to say something about Yellowstone. One of the things that got me, I didn't know anything about cowboys, right? I went horseback riding 2 or 3 times in my life. I think once in Jersey, as a matter of fact. It was yeah. But I was so interested in the storyline because, forgive me, Rob, but it's so much like the life that I led, the mob. Cosa Nostra, the mafia. You take an oath, you get branded, you're sworn to secrecy, you're in it for life. When I saw that scene, I got so enthralled in that. I said, wow, this is cowboy mafia going on. I mean, how did you feel when you saw that unfold?
That's a lot of people. When I hear people talk about it or they're describing it to their friends, especially the past couple of years, that has become part of the zeitgeist. People are like, "Oh, it's like Godfather on the ranch or The Sopranos on the ranch." You know what I mean? Like it's that much more Godfather. I hear a lot of Godfather references. Man, Taylor hit the nail on the head with that, and I mean, yeah, he's a genius at what he does, you know, and him also being a student of film and TV, a fan and a student of it, he knows what he's doing 100%. And what an interesting, you know, hook for a Western. What a different way to approach that. And he lives that life as far as, you know, cowboying and ranching. He still does it every day. Gets up in the morning, gets out on his horse. He even last week they were telling I was talking the snowstorm had kicked in, but that's his life. But then adding that other element into it, pure genius. And the way that Kevin works as that patriarch and everything else, brilliant. I love it.
It made it so intriguing to me. And now I have 5 daughters, and 2 of them are saying, hey, yeah, forget Jersey and New York. We want to go out to Montana and marry a cowboy. You know, tough guys. So tell Taylor I might have a little beef with him coming up. We'll see. But anyway, no, it's great. And I have to say, your character, you play Sheriff Bill Ramsey, and you took over for the prior sheriff that got killed in one of the episodes. And I understand your involvement with John Dutton, you're pretty much a straight shooter. You're not into some of his schemes and plans that he wants to do, but I think you got to come around at some point, right? Because he's the guy. I mean,
it's going to be really good at keeping a secret, Michael. It's like we all take these unspoken oaths with Taylor. It's funny that some things haven't leaked up. That being said, Bill is very possibly going to be the rock against John is going to hit up against, because it's something different, right? In the sense that that everyone that John's gone against, he's always felt that his by any means necessary and to protect his family, that he's going up, he's butting heads with these criminals, with these outlaws, and that's always consciously or unconsciously justified for himself, his actions. So, but what does John do when he faces someone who isn't corruptible? You know what I mean? And who isn't, who hasn't been corrupted? Like, what do you do when you're facing off against someone who, I like to think of it this way, that my character is the one character that is on the right side of things. I'm sure every actor thinks that, which takes me to an interview that I saw that you had to sit down with Armand Asante. And love that one. I saw that a while back. I rewatched it the other day. I'm a huge fan of Armand Asante. He's been huge, brilliant. Obviously, he's working Gotti. Even Judge Dredd, whatever that guy was in, he was just like, he just had to be so good. But he had said something, which when I circled back to that a couple of days ago about finding the vulnerability of the character, you know what I mean? What's the weakness? And I think that, you know, Ramsey's might be his ethics, you know what I mean? So it'll be very interesting to how Taylor plays with that, because he's extremely ethical, you know what I mean? And he's the most probably ethical character in the whole show. He's the most show. Yeah. And Taylor sat down when he told me that my character would be the sheriff a couple of years ago and talked about where the character's going and where the show's going in respect to that. I was like, oh wow, that's fascinating. That's part of what it is that he is the most ethical person in this. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And I was like, but that's a strength, and that's also going to be a weakness. And Taylor's a genius, so I'm really curious to see how that plays out. But Yeah, we him coming around to John's side, it's gonna be very interesting. It's gonna be very, very interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, yeah, and I know you can't tell us too much. I'm not gonna twist your arm over it. But you know, I have to say, one of the things about the show, and I've spoken to a lot of women about the show, my wife, my daughters, is that the men are portrayed as real men, and I think that. Yeah, I mean, everybody's kind of appreciating that. Even though, you know, they're shady, there's still everything about them is manly. And we don't have, you know, too many shows like that. And it's brilliant in that regard. And I think he hit the nail on the head in these times, especially. You know, people are really enjoying it. So,
I'm so surprised people come up and they recognize my work from any show or anything, much less the show. And but that's something that I've been in the gym and I'm doing a set, and it's like, and then grown man will come over and go, "Hey man, just really appreciate what you guys are doing on that show, and you're portraying men in a healthy way. Like they're protecting their families and they respect their families, they respect their women, they respect, you know what I mean? But he's that they're it's good to see that. And I say that because that has come up a lot. It's come up in airports, it's come up in the gym, it's come up people crossing on the street. I'm like, oh wow, like they really appreciate that, along with other people from law enforcement, and which is we can talk a little bit more. But yeah, the feedback on that in general, the show has been great.
yeah, it's really resonating. And let me ask you this, and we'll get into, Mayor of Kingstown also, because you play, another law enforcement person. I've had a lot of encounters with law enforcement back in the day, and I had, formulated kind of a bias against them until things turned around for me, and I understood right from wrong and wrong from right. Did you ever have any encounters with the police that when you got into this role, you had any preconceived notions that you had to get rid of, or, whether it be good or bad, whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been asked that question. Yes. It was interesting because much more mature now. So I see things a little bit, but yeah, there have been some I had some not good experiences, when I was younger, and when I feel injustice. So like I've been fortunate, kept my head above water, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But my father was, for the fear of my father. But that being said, yeah, they definitely had some experiences. And so when I was cast in these roles, I felt that it was really important, and especially with everything that was going on at the time, it was really important for me to um, portray real people and also to get by any biases that I had. And I've had some good experiences with law enforcement too. It hasn't all been bad, but it's unfortunate, right? That the bad ones, it leaves and then some pretty horrible things. You know what I mean? And but the majority has been good. But still, I wanted to get rid of that. So I was like the best way to do that was to go full immersion. And I do a lot of martial arts training, and I train with a lot of law enforcement and a lot of military and some special forces guys. So I talked to a couple of them, and my instructor here on Gracie, and they put me in contact with some other people. And so I went out for Kingstown, for example, and I went out and spent a week in Dearborn, in Michigan, and the police department. And it was a combination of I get very into whatever I'm doing. Like I've got as much. I use that time before the shoot to immerse and study and just fully go in. And also too, because I'm like, wow, I'm gonna need to get by any unconscious biases that I might have so that I portray a well-rounded human being. And also, which is a beauty of this business and of this craft, is maybe I'll become a little more empathetic to than I may have been prior to by doing that. So I did that, and not that I'm looking to justify anything, or I also didn't want to get into the role where I'm playing it safe because I'm trying to protect an image or whatnot. So spending that week out there, and Chief Haddad and Captain Vincent and the whole team, I was doing morning shifts with them in the meetings, and these guys are sleeping 5 hours a night. So you're sleeping 5 hours a night because you're coming back in after night patrol. I was like, I'm gonna do that. So I go back to my hotel, and then so after 2 or 3 days, I'm like, man, I'm on 4 hours of sleep a night, 4 hours sleep a night, and it's amazing. Again, I'm not excusing any of the bad behavior, but the majority of it is good. Otherwise, the whole system would have fallen apart. But there are definitely some issues. But spending that time with them was really, really helpful, and finding the humanity in these people outside of the gun and the badge, and listening to their family stories, listening to the people that lives that they've saved, going on patrol and being in the middle of a hostage situation, you know what I mean? And the same thing with Sheriff D'Agostini. When I became sheriff of Yellowstone, I was like, okay, sheriff is different from watch commander. What's that like? How does so I reached out to some of my people, and man, Sheriff Augustine was so cool. So I went up to, stayed with him. He just retired after 20 years a couple of months ago. Had me stay with the family on the ranch. I was like, what? And, so I stayed up there for about 3, 4 days and shadowed him and the family. And that stuff really helped. It helped me kind of get a little bit more outside of myself and really feel that it's giving me a lot of like stuff to draw from, along with my own experiences, to just portray real people. So when people watch that show, there is my word of the month. There is this verisimilitude. You know what I mean? There's this truthness to it that's unsaid or unspoken to the best of my ability. And again, removing whatever biases that I may have had before. But I was fortunate to get placed with D'Agostini and then Haddad, who were really good men, and who had taken a lot of stride, who were very aware of some of the issues that existed in the department and existed in their departments prior to them taking over. It was almost like a godsend. You know what I mean? I got these two guys in two separate parts of the country and different backgrounds who were like, oh no, stuff was pretty messed up and it's messed up elsewhere, but here's what we did and here's what we've done for morale and accountability and training. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. But they shared some very honest stories with me about, how, issues elsewhere and the mountain ahead. So, if I'm going to portray this, I just really not want to portray a caricature of a sheriff or police captain on Kingstown. And on both shows, that's what we're always after. Taylor Michael Friedman is a producer on Kingstown. Hugh Dillon, of course, co-creator. So I think Stephen Kay, Christina, the different directors and producers trying to be as authentic as possible and do something that you don't always see on TV. And that goes every department: acting, costume, writing, of course. So yeah.
Well, there's no doubt that you've captured that, the authenticity. A couple of years back, I was asked to portray a role in a movie, and I did it. And the character was really based upon me. So I'm actually playing a character of myself, a character like myself. I didn't want to do it. I was kind of forced into it because it was a good friend of mine that wrote the script and was doing the movie. But I have gotten such a respect for actors that have mastered their craft, because when he sent me the script and I saw the pages of dialogue, I said, how the heck am I going to remember that? I said, I can't do this, And I'm playing a role that I'm fairly familiar with. And I said, this is not for me, man. I gained just such an amount of respect for actors that have mastered their craft, because again, I was playing me and it was difficult. And you got to get into a character that's really not you. But the preparation, I don't think people really understand the preparation that's involved and the intensity in getting into the character and then really performing well. It's really it's amazing, when you can really pull it off. So I have a lot of respect for that. And I got to ask you this: great scene in Yellowstone. Beth, who is the wildest character I ever seen in a woman, I got to tell you, brilliant, but wild. I don't know how he came up with her, but she gets into a fight. She assaults a woman who is trying to pick up on Rip, her husband. And you're going to lock her up, and Rip kind of threatens you. Do you realize what you're doing? Do you know who this is? But you stood up to him and said, hey, I'm doing a job. And you actually lock her up. You arrest her. So it was a cool scene, really cool scene.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's man, I'm so excited. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's setting some stuff up. Yeah, Taylor is setting some stuff up. It was really interesting too. Cole, who's fantastic. I've been a fan of Cole's work and Kelly's work for some time, even prior to Yellowstone. So, sometimes you're doing the scenes, you're like, oh, wait a second. You go in and out, you're like, well, this is Cole out watching his school dies. You know what I mean? And Kelly, who was in Flight with with Denzel. But yeah, Kelly's fantastic. Cole's fantastic. Yeah, that scene was a lot of fun. And then Ashley Potts, who played the woman who instigated the bar scene. Yeah, it was very cool. So to that point, yeah, Cole and I played with that in different in some different ways. A couple of takes, got kind of low key, not low key, like there was some simmering. There was some simmering. Yeah, Cole was great because he'll come at you in different ways, or you'll see that part of Rip that's in him, even though he's very different. I mean, I don't know Cole that well, but even though he's not, but he's yeah, it was great. So I was really curious to see where they take that, because you have two immovable forces. And I had the great Janetta Boone, who's our costume designer, and we had talked about the uniform change. And I give all credit to her. I was just like, hey, let's put some black in the uniform. And what I meant by that is like, John D'Agostini was like, hey, what we call a sheriff that wears white, a t-shirt or white. So what do you call him? We call him a target. And he's like, maybe put some black in there, like a black t-shirt. I was like, oh, interesting. So I reached out to Janetta about that. And I showed up, and I can't wait for everyone to see you saw it in episode 3 of what the sheriff's department looks like. But that being said, Janetta talked about that, the visual aspect of in that scene with Rip and I, and things that, may be coming, is that we're the only two characters that are in all black. The only two characters in the show that wear black, and there's a reason for that. We're kind of same side, different sides of the very similar coin, so to speak. And Rip is, you know what I mean? Yeah, expect expect some surprises from Ramsey to come. And that was a clear threat on both sides in that scene. So yeah, I'm glad that it landed. You never know.
One of the things that it really gets me is every character, you're kind of glued to them every time they're in a scene. And there's not too many shows like that, but every scene is just, you don't want to take your eyes off it. And I'm not being like, I really mean it. I mean, this is that kind of a show.
I was watching, before I got cast in the show, I was watching the show as a fan of the show, and felt the same thing. Never thought that I'd be in this show. I had known Taylor from before. I'm the least cowboy of all all the people that you know. But yeah, so I understand that. Yeah, it was like, wow, this character. That goes from the top. It goes from Taylor. It goes from Taylor's writing. It's authentic. He's speaking his truth. He's got, combined with his intellect and his imagination and his eye for that authenticity, which comes to him casting the right people for the role, and the cast and the crew, department heads, everyone. Everyone really is at the top. He's bringing in people at the top of their game. Maybe present company excluded. No, he's bringing in people at the top of their game. At the top of their game. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. So it's a joy. It's a joy to watch as a fan for myself.
Have you had much, because I know how it goes on the sets, much involvement with Kevin?
Not much. Just I met him. Kevin was great. I met him that day for the first time. We're speaking of talking earlier about gangster movies. It was and they had told me like, hey, this is gonna be like Taylor said, this is gonna be like that scene in Heat. I was like, okay, like with De Niro and Pacino. I'm like, all right. I mean, I could do a good Pacino impression. I was like, but who's gonna be your De Niro Pacino? And he's like, you're gonna be in this scene with Kevin. I was like, get the frack out of here. So when I read that scene, I was like, oh wow, okay. So I went in that day, and I'd never met Kevin before. You know what I mean? I grew up watching Kevin's movies. I definitely felt like my mother was in the room with me, because she put me in front of the, thing with movies and TVs. One of Kevin's biggest fans was my mother. And I'm in here with Elliot Neff, and I'm doing this scene. So yeah, Kevin came in. We rehearsed it once, which is rare, because we actually don't really rehearse on Yellowstone. We really work on blocking. So we did some blocking. We tried to cheat in a rehearsal, so to speak. But yeah, he was nice and just went to work. And I was like, thank the Lord, I was prepared. Kevin. And but then I just blown away by, even at his level and the time he had in this industry, and all that he's achieved, he's still fighting for that next nugget in a scene. You know what I mean? He's still looking for ways to elevate it. Incredibly inspiring. I mean, I will never forget those, that moments. I'm like, wow, you know, Kevin could put this on autopilot, you know what I'm saying? But he's still, and still falling forward. And then we had a really nice exchange of words at the end of the day, which I've never repeated. I know this. I feel like there's a certain energy in what he had said to me, but it was really nice. Yeah. So he was a joy to work with, and we will be connecting again soon if everything goes as planned.
Well, that's good to hear. And your mom and I have something in common in that I've always been a fan of Kevin's for a long time. I've had the pleasure of a writer by the name of Ron Shelton. Do you know Ron? You know of Ron? He's written a lot of movies. He's done a lot of work with Kevin, done some of his sports films.
Okay.
But there is actually a television series in development based upon my life story, and Ron has written the pilot. And
Oh, right on.
yeah, he's done everything. And so working with him for the past 2 years has been a pleasure. And he speaks so well about Kevin, so it's been great, really. Hope to get to meet him one day. Maybe Field of Dreams or something like that. We'll see.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Again.
Oh,
Cool.
yeah, he's a good. Yeah.
And you've had, I mean, every character. I mean, Luke Grimes is terrific. They're all just great. So it's a great show. I'm glad to hear that it continues.
Yeah, 100%. Every actor on there. And I'm not just, I know it sounds biased because I'm on it, but that's not always the case. I've been doing this for a minute and done a lot of things that, that didn't see the light of day and have been fortunate to work with, but some great people. It's rare when you get hitters, in front and behind the camera at the level that this cast and crew is at on Yellowstone and Mayor of Kingstown. So to have it on one show, much less, two shows. But yeah, Luke, Cole, Monica, who else? Wes. Wes, who's phenomenal. I know his character, Jamie, gets a lot of heat. Such a nice guy, but it's a testament to his talent as an actor that he plays a character for a guy who's so nice and likable. Who plays a character that's so despised so well. But yeah, you can go on and on about every single person in that cast and crew. So yeah, again, it comes from the top. It comes from Taylor. It comes from Sheridan. Picking the right people and having that eye.
It's great. Next time you see Taylor, not that it means anything, but tell him, hey, you got a former mob guy who's a big fan of yours. Just keep up the great work.
110%. I will. You would. I mean, if you guys ever get a chance to get together, he will be picking your brain, I'm sure.
Cut to Mayor of Kingstown. I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, it's a very dark series, but once again, brilliantly acted. I mean, Jeremy Renner is just terrific in that. And I'm going to ask you in the end, by the way, have you spoken to him at all since he had that accident? Is he doing okay? Or
I have not. I had, obviously, I've worked with Jeremy a few times. It's funny because a couple of days before that, he had, I'd messaged him on social media on something because there was something that a friend of mine had did in a movie of his, and we had a laugh about that. That was like the day before his accident. And then the next day he had gotten in this accident. I was like, wow, life is, you never know what's coming. Coming up. But that being said, from what I've heard, I was with some of the cast, one of my castmates a few days ago. So from what I've heard is that, man, that guy, well, I know he's a fighter, from my time working with him and everything else, and the energy he brings on set and how physical he is and how, it's I've been a fan of his work for quite some time, but then to work with him and again, the level he's hitting at, that the heart that he has, his spirit strong. So I'm not surprised to hear that he's making an extraordinary comeback right now after breaking 33 bones. That he is he's making a heck of a comeback. So that's good. That's good. And we'll see what happens next with when he's ready for the next season if he decides to do that.
Yeah, well, hopefully he'll be back for season 3. I mean, that's what we hope on it. But yeah, he's got to be a fighter. Really, really upset when I heard about that. But hey, he's great. Does a great job. But you play Captain Walter. In this series, it seems like the whole system is broken down. I mean, it's just everything is not the way it should be, but somehow it continues to work. And I mean, that's the impression I get on it because the people, just the way they communicate with one another, each person having their role and trying to keep that town, peaceful and trying to keep the families at bay and the inmates. It's fascinating. And again, everybody does such a great job, really a great job in it. What's your feeling working in a show like that?
Working on that show, thank you. That's a good question. I'm not gonna lie. When I read, Taylor had called me and we were talking about, Mayor of Kingstown. One of my friends had read the script for the pilot, and he's like, "Oh, you should talk to Taylor about this." I'm not gonna talk to Taylor about this. I'm already, we just talked about this stuff with Yellowstone, which ended up getting delayed, but it's coming. And then I read it, and the pop like, "Oh wow, this is freaking dope." And also, even reading it, I was like a little bit disturbed reading it because even what you see in the first season, especially the pilot episode, they actually pulled back in filming from what was on. There's some things that they pulled back on that were in the script that definitely read true. And then I called Taylor and then left him a message, and he called me back. He said, "No, no, no." He's like, "This is what we got planned for you for this thing." I was like, "Oh, really?" And then he explained to me they are, which he's so good at doing, what they're looking to say in this series, without really saying it. Wanting to explore the criminal justice system, basically the prison industrial complex system in America. And another thing about this show, which was co-created by the great Hugh Dillon, who played Sheriff Haskell and now plays Ian, and Hugh is such a great dude. And a lot of this is based on his life experiences. So when I was talking to Hugh about how much of this stuff and having, especially, reading the first season and the second season, I'm really proud to be part of as well. Like this stuff like hits you. You read that script, you read those scripts, and you as an actor, your imagination, is you're immersing yourself into this, and it goes to some uncomfortable places, right? But yeah, he was like, "Oh, about 90% of this stuff are things that really happen." Like it's like, we might fudge a little bit, but he's like, "Oh no, about 90+ % of these are real life events that I've seen directly or indirectly in my life." And we're trying to keep this as authentic as possible, so that we can authentically portray what this system does and what's the word? Not intrinsic isn't the word I'm looking for, but basically how it spreads, and how it affects the people in it, or the people who don't think, that they're in it. And in my character, Captain Walter, he's a guy that is really trying to do the right thing and is really trying to be, he plays a captain of the detectives. He's also the media liaison for the department, so he handles a lot of that stuff with the FBI and stuff. And he's trying to keep the image of what this department should be, in the forefront. And he looks at this town and the criminal justice system that, him getting involved where he thought he could do some good. It's almost like a cancer that he's always trying to stop from spreading, So, which in and of itself corrupt him a little bit, because he looks at everybody with a, you know, have you got the disease yet, so to speak? You know what I mean? So it's in, and yeah, there's a lot of people in the shadow, so to speak, on that show. My character included, but it's a raw show, and it's an incredibly honest show, and I think it hits people in a different way, because these are real, not just authentic situations and circumstances and environments, but these are real life events, being portrayed, and things that have happened and things that are happening. And I think that resonates in a different way, but hopefully it does bring some healing and attention to some things too.
Well, I can say this, unfortunately, having spent half my life either visiting prison or in prison myself, yeah, it was incredibly authentic as far as the state systems are, very authentic. Feds are a little bit different. you know, because it's more orderly there, and the feds have the advantage. They break up the gangs, you know, so they have so many prisons throughout the country. And so if there is a gang situation, they'll separate you and put you something that just try to keep everybody separated so that you can't really get into that gang situation. But in the state, very, very authentic. I mean, they run the prisons in many of these places, you know, California, New York, run the prisons. And, you know, I was around when there was a big riot in Attica way back when. And I had actually some friends of my dad were in there, and I remember speaking to them about it and them telling me what occurred during those riots with the inmates, and it was very authentic. And he's really captured that. It is very dark, obviously, and the character that Jeremy Renner plays is so, I mean, I've never seen anything like that. You know, he's a guy with no official title, but he's trying to keep everything calm, and he's got a lot of respect, and you know, he's the liaison between families and law enforcement and prisoners and inmates. It's an amazing character that was. To me, it was very intriguing to see that. So it's got my attention, you know, and a lot of people are enjoying it. I'll tell you what, you know, the little disadvantage is that it's on Paramount Plus and a streaming platform. If this was on normal cable, I think you might have twice the audience, but it's catching on in a big way.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for that, Michael. I think so too. It's interesting, I'll put it that way. It's like a mixed bag of things in the sense that with Jeremy's very unfortunate accident, and we're always continually praying for his speedy recovery and for him obviously to take whatever time that he needs. I mean, what he does is extraordinary in that show. And we were shooting that show. It was a show like, you know, you do things and as an actor in his business, and you really want to do, it's, you know, it's a privilege to be part of, you know, a good story. And you want to give it your all. And it was a thing to where this cast and the crew when we were up there in Toronto, we felt that we were all doing something that we were really proud of work-wise, you know what I mean? And I was always showing up, which I usually do anyways, but I was like really excited to show up on set when I wasn't working and watch everyone else's scenes and watch Jeremy work, you know what I mean? And what he's called to do as his character, right? And then as an actor, I mean, Jeremy's in like 90% of the show, you know, and that's unheard of for 10 episodes. You know, we're basically making a 10-hour movie, you know, and you know, he's in 90% of that, you know, 95% of that movie in a very visceral, vulnerable, physical way. And he shows up again and again and again and again. We really felt, because of all the layering of these characters and these storylines and Hugh, you know, behind the show, obviously Hugh Dillon, co-creator, and Taylor Sheridan, the Michael Friedman, who spent a lot of time doing prison documentaries. I think he said he spent 10 plus years doing that beforehand. So you've got a group of guys, you know, combined with Guy Ferlin, who is there, and of course Stephen Kay. But you've got a group of guys and men and women who really get it. And having, you know, Jeremy run point on that, we all felt that, well, we got something here, you know, the Paramount Plus, we got something here. And so with the unfortunate, well, you never know if something's going to pop, you know what I mean? You never know how people are going to be receptive to it. But I think that once we got that first season down, we all felt, and I've spoken to, you know, multiple members of the cast, and we've all become friends, that this might be a show that might take, you know, 2 or 3 seasons, but we really felt it would be something like, you know, The Sopranos had a faster start, I think. But I think by the second season, people were in Sopranos. But The Wire might have taken like 3 seasons or so. But we feel like, okay, people are going to start resonating with it. They're going to find out about it. And what's underneath the show, what's in the belly of the show that Taylor and Hugh and Jeremy, you know what I mean, are we're all trying to bring forward. But so to my point earlier, that, you know, the unfortunate part of Jeremy's accident, the other part of it, if there's anything, is the fact that a lot of people have turned their attention to look at how Jeremy's doing, which is fantastic, and what he's been up to. And they're like, oh, he's been this mayor of Kingstown, and people are starting to catch on to the show now. You know, it's been out that first season for a year, but I'm getting a lot of nice messages, and my other castmates as well. people really enjoying and taking to the show. I'm like, whoa, where's this show been? Well, it's been on Paramount Plus, but but at the time, Paramount Plus was relatively, new. Like, that show in 1883 launched that app, a year ago, and Paramount, understandably so, put a lot of that push behind 1883 because it was coming off of Yellowstone. A lot of people were missing on Mayor of Kingstown, but I don't, want to sound ostentatious, but yeah, if it was on cable, I think more people would be seeing the great work that the people in front and behind the camera, Jeremy, of course, included, at the forefront of that, and Hugh and everyone are doing. So it's nice to see that people are seeing it now, and we hope that that continues. That's a privilege.
I think it's going to build without a doubt.
Yeah, unfortunately, the accident to Jeremy has brought attention to this. But it's such an intriguing character that there's a guy that has no official position, and yet he's so important in just keeping peace everywhere. The way they created that character, is really brilliant. And I love the dynamic between him and his mother, who's also she's amazing. She's amazing.
Diane is fantastic. Have you run into that before? And have you run into a guy like that before in your time when you were, in the life prior to? Did you ever hear of guys like that?
Not as complete a character as he is. He's dealing with everybody, Honestly, Rob, we've had people in kind of in government, politicians that kind of played the game with all of us at that time, but never like this. I mean, never a character like this, as complete a character, as involved a character with everybody as Jeremy is on this. It was just brilliant. It's just a brilliant show, and hopefully we're going to get 6 seasons.
Hopefully, because my fingers are crossed. Hopefully, yeah, God willing. Yeah, Jeremy. It's nice to watch the show because I watch the show as a fan too. I pop in and I'm like, oh, I'm coming up here this season to see the after effects and really appreciate them going in that direction, and Stephen and Taylor and Hugh and Michael taking the show and really taking the time to again, that authenticity after that prison riot, that breakdown of the system, and spending a season instead of jumping over that and jumping, like everything's fine now, or that was a stick. You really taking that time and seeing the effects that riot had on the town, the gang system, the hierarchy, you know what I mean? And you'll even see it with my character, who's supposed to be the, everyone's kind of, on the verge of, you know what I mean? And it's good to see in a very authentic way that, to your point, people are kind of challenging a little bit in some of these episodes and scenes. Jeremy's Mike McCluskey's like, wait a minute, what authority do you have? You know what I mean? And then so him having to, yeah, exactly. And there are those moments where Jeremy plays so beautifully, right? And the layers to that, to where he's in this, like, his back is kind of moving against the wall a little bit, you know what I mean? As the pressure is going to continue to build this season, where is my power at? You know what I mean? Where is it at? And these other parts start to crumble. Where is, and for those who haven't gotten, caught up on it, like there's them introducing the consequences of what could possibly happen if that structure falls, if that foundation that his character is on, and Jeremy is playing that so beautifully. So as a member of the show, but also as a fan, I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. Where is that? Him playing this he's vulnerable.
And I love his relationship with Bunny, who's a terrific character. And it's great. And it's so intriguing that, the way they have this played out, what happens inside the prison is going to affect what happens outside. In the real world, I never saw that. So the twist that they have it, the way they've created that in here is very intriguing, and having the guys go back into jail and try to settle everything. Hopefully he gets Bunny out. I don't know, but we'll
we'll see.
Yeah, Don't reveal anything. I don't want to get you in trouble. But
Yeah, well, yeah.
But anyway, two great shows. But let me ask you this, Rob. What do you got? Because I know we said this in the beginning. What do you got coming up for yourself? Because, you know, you got two great roles. You're doing a terrific job. And what do you got coming up?
So what I have coming up, I've got a film that I am starring. It's a psych thriller. Very, very, very intrigued to see it again. I haven't seen anything. I think I saw a couple of stills, but that is making its world premiere at the Mammoth Film Festival. I'm starring in that movie opposite the great Nick Cassavetes. So to get a chance to work with, you know, a fan of his work and his father's work, but I'm a fan of Nick's work, and we developed a great rapport. So again, to get a chance to work with another one of my cinematic inspirations is still a trip even saying that out loud. So that's going to premiere at the Mammoth Film Festival. I think we're closing out the festival March 5th. So then after that, you know, we'll see where it goes next, if they do a theatrical release or a streaming release. But I'm hearing good things about that film. Again, I haven't seen it because I usually don't watch my stuff till it, but I'm hearing good things. But if it's closing out the festival, it's that's a good sign. I play a governor who is on a bid for the presidency and who is being recruited by Nick Cassavetes to serve some of Nick's own personal business interests. And the fight which is a great role to play, that I'm playing someone who is a very ethical person, but you see him go through this fall. And that was, you know, really great to have a character like Bill Ramsey, but to you watch him deconstruct throughout this film, and it was very challenging. It was very emotionally and physically challenging, and without giving anything away. But there's a lot of things about that. So that's March 5th, and then have a music video that I'll be doing with Abe Alexander, whose debut album Sea Suns drops April 14th. There's the date. So we are doing a single off that. I think I can say the name, Deja Vu. That's the name of the single. And it's a beautiful story about fatherhood. And so Abe had reached out, who I was a fan of his music, and he turned out to be a fan of Mayor of Kingstown. And I was like, what a trip. And so him and his peeps approached me about that and pitched the idea. It's based on a true story, a very tragic true story, but just the importance of having a father figure, you know, and then what happens when that father figure is taken away and how they pitch that. It's beautiful. So that's we're going to start. That's keyed up actually at the end of this month to do that. So those are the two things right now at the forefront.
I got to tell you, I'd love to see that, because I've been doing a lot of work with men, and you know, I visit prisons and juvenile halls, and I speak to a lot of these young men who unfortunately grew up without fathers in their home. And I'm actually possibly doing something with Mike Tyson to where we can have a positive impact on some of these young men who grew up in fatherless homes. And if you see the statistics, I mean, they're so handicapped as a result of that. So we're trying to, you know, provide mentors for them and just, you know, be uplifting in their life, give them somebody to look for guidance and consultation. It's so needed today. So I'd love to see that. Yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah.
When the song is beautiful. Abe flew out here a couple of weeks ago, and we went to my friend's studio and played the album. It's a new school album, but with that old school feel. You know what I mean? It plays like a book, you know, and with these and it's so beautiful, and the dynamics in it, and then that song itself. But yeah, I wanted to say that at the top, actually. Thank you for being someone who's taken the extraordinary life experiences that you've had and have reached out to help lift up and impact, you know, other young men from by sharing your stories. You know what I mean? I found that very inspiring. Just, you know, being able to transmute your life experiences and to hear about the continued work that you're doing with young men is really, 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 really important. It might have been a podcast that you were on, but I got put on to Will Ferrell's book, The Boy Crisis. And I remember reading that book, and a lot of the statistics that book talks about about what happens when you have when you don't have a father figure, and how vulnerable, especially young men, become, their own mortality or financially or health wise, by not having, a father figure present for whatever reason, and how important having, a male role model is for these young men to help shape them and guide them into what a healthy young man actually is, not a caricature of what a man is, which I think a lot of these young men fall into. They fall into caricatures of what masculinity is. You know what I mean? So that book, but then yeah. So I wanted to tip the hat to you for the work that you've done for decades now to help impact that in a positive way. I've been very fortunate to have been raised by my father. Even though we had our differences, differences. But when he left this world, we parted in peace. And but there's a lot of things that from that dynamic that man have made a difference that I draw off of, in difficult times.
Yeah, no question, Rob. Even in my case, my dad, who had so many troubles of his own, at least he provided a real father figure for me, taught me, what was right in life, the right things to do, and I looked up to him. So, it's a role model. Even though that he went off kilter a little bit, as far as his manliness, as far as the things that he taught me, it was very important. And those people, those young men that don't have that, they really are at a disadvantage. And the stats show it. And I don't want to get into it, but they're at such a disadvantage. So many things happen to them in life that would have been avoided had they had a father in the home. But we try to do our best, and maybe someday we'll do something together, Rob. Who knows?
Let me know. I mean, if I have, it's great to to be working and to be my life experiences. And I always say when I'm coaching with other actors, like, hey, you know what? You get a script, you want to do the best that you can to serve the story that writer is bringing forth into this world through you as authentically as possible. That's a great gift and an opportunity to do that. You can compensate for it, yes, but to do that is storytelling is really important. But when you get something where you have a certain, where people are listening to you or maybe want to talk to you, pay it forward in however you can. You know what I mean? So if there's anything that you think that I could participate on, especially when it comes to reaching out to youth and young men today, I'm 100% for it. Just don't hesitate to hit me up. Like whatever I could do to make the best use of these opportunities that I just want to tell stories and share stories. You know what I mean? And do what I can while I can. So if I can make a little bit of a difference.
I appreciate that, and I may take you up on it, and I sincerely mean that. And I want to thank you for, doing your part in some shows that have been very entertaining for me. I want to thank you for following me on YouTube when you do. That was very encouraging and pleasant to hear that. I appreciate that very much. And thank you for sitting down with me. It's been great. And I hope we continue this relationship. And next time I come to LA, I'll hit you up. And if you're in town, dinner on me. How's that?
I follow the food stuff on your page. I follow your posts and I see some of that cooking. So I'm like, okay, you picked a place that I'm sure you've got great taste in food. Yeah, let me know. I say it'd be a pleasure to have a sit down with you face to face over a nice meal. 100%.
We will definitely make that happen, and I guarantee you won't be disappointed in where I take you. You'll enjoy it.
Right on. I appreciate it.
So listen, thanks for spending the time. God bless. Keep up the great work, and I promise you we'll be in touch. Well, there you have it. I got to say that Rob is probably one of my favorite sit-downs. Just an all-around great guy. He does a great job in the roles that he plays in Yellowstone and Mayor of Kingstown. Just a great guy, a guy you want to spend some time with, but he has a good perspective also on the industry. It was fascinating the way he prepares for his roles, when he gets picked for a part. and just an all-around great guy. So I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. I will be picking him up one day, taking him for dinner, and I know he's going to enjoy that. But I loved his perspective on wanting to help young men, because people, there is such a difference. These young boys and girls who grow up in a home, a fatherless home, they're at such a disadvantage. And I did mention in the video that myself and Mike Tyson might be getting together and share some of our experiences and try to be mentors and try to give some good counsel and guidance to some of these young people, and some, older men too, that grew up with that disadvantage without a father, but need somebody to look up to, need some, just some advice on how to deal with their lives, their business. We're there to help, and Rob has jumped in. He said if we ever need him, so I really appreciate that. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. How do I always leave you, people? Same way. Be safe, be healthy. God bless each and every one of you and your families. And yes, God willing, I'll see you next time. Take care.